in 20 as compared to 2022. And I'm very happy that the first seminar in this year is going to be delivered by Professor D. Narayana. And it's also innovative in the sense that we have Akhila going to chair the session. And Akhila has undertaken research on this topic during her PhD, her MPhil research. And I think this is something innovative. Normally, when we talk about chairing or discussant, in India, we always go for seniors. I remember a long time back, Professor Gustav Ranis was presenting a paper on structural adjustment in developing countries. And I happened to be there at Yale at that time. The first seminar I was attending after reaching there. And the discussion happened to be a very, very young guy. And I was thinking that Gustav Ranis is, must be coming with a paraphernalia of people, because Gustav Ranis, that he's a very prominent development scholar. So I was looking at T.N. Srinivasan was organizing it, I found this speaker is not to be seen. Then after some time, I found somebody carrying a chair and putting it there on the dais and keeping. Then I found this is the person whom we consider very great. I mean, what I'm trying to say that he was so modest, and his paper was discussed by a very young scholar. And I think he was hardly 5 years senior, 4 or 5 years senior to me. And that person was very critical on it. And of course, I was not agreeing to those criticism, because the paper by Gustav was read by Manoj Panda and me. And before going for, while we were going for dinner, both of us felt that paper is very pertinent for developing countries. In fact, the last paper which I have done before going for Yale was on structural adjustment in India, a survey paper. So this young man, in our context, the young people will be very polite. He said, there is nothing in this paper, it is parsimonious, etc. I was the first person within our belligerent mode saying that, okay, this paper, I told that yesterday my paper was this, I did work on this topic, and my colleague from India felt that paper is very highly relevant. If you can understand the paper, don't discuss it, etc., etc. And after the seminar, Gustav told me, thank you very much for defending me. And while we were going for dinner, then I found that the young guy was not a small guy. He was none other than Danny Roderick. Then, of course, I collected all Danny's article. I found a very balanced man. So I think our culture of discussion and chairperson should always be somebody having more gray hairs than someone presenting should change. And I think in that direction, I appreciate the seminar coordinators for this innovative move. So I take this occasion, first of all, to welcome all of you, and particularly I appreciate Professor Narayana for this initiative. And secondly, I also equally importantly, I appreciate and welcome our chair of the day, and of course, all of you. And the topic, I don't need to delve upon that. That's what we are going to listen more. But as a welcome, I should say one sentence, two sentences. The point which I felt here is that in a context wherein we are extremely concerned about multiple spaces of exclusion in the country, in the socio-economic spheres, I think the exclusion of gender is, in fact, the progeny of almost all the associated exclusions that we can think of. To that extent, this is a very important matter. But then we talk about inclusion, actually. Our whole idea is to facilitate inclusion. But if the inclusion of the type that we bring about is kind of subordinated inclusion or elusive inclusion, it may not be serving a purpose. And in a country like ours, I think only 10% of the in parliament is only women, I suppose. And in Kerala, DN is going to tell an interesting story wherein we have got we have set a different paradigm. And what is the nature and character of the trajectory that this paradigm has built for us, that has contributed? That is something which we need to inquire at length. I think that is where, if we are truly committed towards addressing exclusion, the effectiveness of inclusion that we have brought about through the kind of approaches that we adopted, its effectiveness needs to be very carefully looked at. And I think the topic is very important. And thank you very much. And I would like to request Akhila to chair this session and conduct the proceeding.
Thank you, sir. Respected Director, respected Professor D. Narayana, and other senior professors and other colleagues and my dear friends. First, let me thank you for this opportunity to chair this very interesting topic, which I think it's one main area of my interest. Thank you for the opportunity. First, let me start with a thought that, as we all know, last year we just completed 25 years of decentralization, and there are very different dimensions of decentralization which we are very proud of, and there are some dimensions which need more focus. And I believe gender mainstreaming of local governance is one such dimension which need more focus. When we see the affirmative action in terms of women reservation in local governance, we know that around more than 50% reservation is implied in local government institutions in almost all states in India. But when we see 54% of elected women representatives in local government institutions, we can only see around 12% of representations in higher levels of governance. So at the same time, it's very interesting to look at what are the trajectories of entry, how these women are entering into politics, what are their motivations, and what is their pathway. So it's very interesting to know all these things. And also, when we look at the research that is done on elected women representatives in all India context, we can see there are many papers which discussed about the barriers that these women face in the local governance, and in that they have focused upon the role of the political parties, what role these political parties are playing in the election of these elected women representatives. So in this context, I believe that today's discussion will open up a new area, that new dimension of this thing. So in this thought, I call upon Professor Narayana to present the paper. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Joseph and Akhila, and good afternoon to all of you. In fact, I was listening to Professor Joseph the other day, Christmas party. He said 2023 should be more dynamic, and then I thought, why don't I start off? That's why I requested Kiran and Anup that I'd like to give a seminar, so that there should be no dearth of seminars. In fact, there should be more seminars. The other thing is also, a paper is also ready. So I thought I'll start 2023 with a seminar and a paper, so that others have no excuse. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. One is already approved by Anita. So the other paper is actually, this is also more or less written. Akhila will definitely have more to say on that because I have given her a copy. So, and I have been presenting, an outline of this was presented early November in a national seminar, because that was just an outline, because the last minute I was asked to give a presentation. So I had to quickly put together something. And fortunately that outline helped, because that's in the next 2-3 months, I could really develop it into a almost, I thought, full-fledged paper. And that actually opened up. And that is another purpose of this seminar. You see, there's always students get into their PhD sort of a mode. I always wonder, oh, what is the data source? How do we go about it? And all that sort of a thing. Now, what I've been doing the last 3-4 years is actually opening up various data sources. And this is also one rich data source, which is, little exploited. And the opportunities are really great. And it is not just economics. So in fact, I sent a personal invitation to the politics department in University of Kerala. If any of you are interested, you are most welcome, but I don't see any of them because anyway, with those words, let me turn to the topic. Yeah. I don't think I have to explain the title. As we go along, you would know what I am trying to say. Now you see, today morning you must have read the newspapers. Jacinda Ardern saying that she is demitting office. Now you see, the last few years, we have actually seen many women on the political scene. Of course, Hillary Clinton fighting for the first female presidentship of US. Then, of course, she couldn't make it. But Kamala Harris becoming the vice president, Jacinda Ardern. And, you have a large number of people all over the world. In fact, that has caught our imagination. There is no disputing that. Though you have all these glamorous personalities, the fact is that if you take the parliaments, only about 26% are women in the parliaments. So they're still very much underrepresented. That is the sort of a reality, though very interesting, glamorous personalities rule many countries. And having said that, if you look at the, progress over the last 25 years, I think we have made considerable progress because in 1995, it was only 11%. It doubled by 2015, then of course slowly going up and reached about 26% now. But interestingly, if you look at the variation across continents and countries, Americas, of course, leave out US and Canada, but the, Americas, it's about 30%. Western Europe, it's almost close to that. But in Western Europe, the Nordic countries, we often compare Kerala with the Nordic countries, but Nordic countries, it is 43.9%. Now, that is something really great because we are almost close to 50. And in fact, some of the countries, it is higher than 50. So it's a very interesting thing because when I started reading this thing, you have the International Parliamentary Union bringing out annual reports where you have a lot of these details, and it's very, very interesting reading. So these developments. And some of the countries you wouldn't believe that, they have more than 50% women, but very quickly they have reached that sort of a thing. And it's quite an interesting sort of a thing to pursue. And if you look at the progress, 1960s, we had only 3 at the top. 1970s, it became 6. Then 7 in the 1980s. But 1990s onwards, the number has been going up. But in the last few years, in fact, it has more or less tapered off. Now it is about 30 executives of the, the top prime ministership or executive presidents are women. That is the sort of a And the interesting thing about it is that 1960s, when such top women leadership was rare, it was South Asia which was dominating. One of the first was Sirimavo Bandaranaike, I think in 1960. Then 66, it was Indira Gandhi, and 69, Golda Meir. But now where are we? That is the interesting thing. Huh? But that takes us to. I'm not going to discuss that. I don't want to use any terms there, but
That is going to be your story.
Exactly. So, and one of the key factors we actually, which see the advancement of women is basically what's called gender quotas, either legislative wise or parties more or less agreeing to have gender quotas. That seems to play a very, very important, part in advancing the cause of women in parliament. As of 2020, about 81 countries have gender quotas. Now, that's very important. Now, India also, we have gender quotas, but at the local government level. Now, we have it almost now for the 30 years now, because 1994 onwards, if you look at the local governments, most of the states, as Ms. Akhila was saying, you have 50% quota for women in the local governments. But despite that, we don't really see many coming up in the legislative assembly or in the parliament. And that is a very important issue. Why is it? Despite having, and 50% is not a small number. It's quite a, and there is this very interesting paper, which I liked a lot. That's by Farida Jalal Zai, who gives a framework. She says it's what matters for the progress of women. Firstly, of course, numbers. Second, pathways. And third, political clout. So that is a sort of a framework that I use in my presentation today. So with the 50% reservation, in fact, numbers are now very large at that level. So whether women like it or not, they have to be there sort of a thing, because there is always this individual dimension, but I am also not going to get into much of that. But there is a problem. Numbers alone can quickly lead to proxies. So numbers have to be embellished by two factors, two key variables. One is education, second is employment. That's some sort of economic independence. Without that, numbers in itself. In fact, if you look at the Indian literature, the initial years, now I don't see, even now I see references, lot of the literature was on proxies, how they are proxy of somebody or the other, and there's a lot of literature. In fact, 2000s and a lot of those papers, I'm not going to refer to all those papers, because there's a voluminous, correct me, Ms. Akhila, if I'm wrong, because there's a voluminous literature on that, the proxies. But one of the reasons, but I also looked at some of these things carefully, and then I realized that they're not going into the reasons why this proxy. But that's why my argument is that numbers themselves don't tell the story. They have to be embellished by education and, economic, some sort of economic independence. And proxy basically means someone else taking decisions for those elected women. There is, of course, also the issue of allied capture in a hierarchical society like ours. But we, in our reservation, we also have this thing, reservation for SC, ST in committees, in presidentships and all that. There's one way you address that allied capture sort of a thing also. So that's what India has done. And turning to pathways, now the political pipeline, you see, women have to gain experience like anybody else, even men are no exception to that. And pathways In fact, there's this, I've given this quotation. Uh, women executives who make it to the top have vast legislative experience. That is the way they enter the sort of a thing. So pathways or the political pipeline is a very important factor. So that's why numbers, but then proxy has to be avoided. Second, pathways. Yes, how long they are there, what sort of experience they gain. That's a second sort of a factor. Then, of course, in democracies, political parties are supposed to be the gatekeepers of democracy. And they play a very important role. You see, they are the ones who select candidates. They are the people who support the candidates. So in a party system, political gatekeeping, I think is a very important part that's played by them in promoting sort of a women. So how the political parties function and who are the people who make it to the committees of these parties and decision making. So that is the third sort of a dimension that one needs to see in this context. Okay. Now, of course, my larger focus is India. But then when we look at that, I take Kerala because for me, it's easier to argue some of those things, how you don't have proxy because you have higher education and this sort of a thing. And also a very dynamic local governments with 50% reservation. Some states do not have that. So that's why I take Kerala and then look at Kerala and say, if Kerala hasn't done that with all these advantageous factors, then why talk of other states? Because other states, you will have more of proxies and all that because education and other things, they are still much below Kerala. So that is a sort of an argument that that's the reason why I have taken Kerala. Of course, one could take, also there is another factor, of course. Kerala, data is very easy to get. I have it right, everything on the site. Many other states, it's not available in that sort of form. You really have to struggle to the election commission and things of that sort, but you can get. But this is, you see, at a all India level, like my previous paper on the size of government, you see, at the all India level, this is a very rich data source. Lot of work can be done. You don't have to go to the field. Of course, if you want to go to the field, you go, but you have the data. You just have to sit in your room and you have a very large database and you can cover a number of issues. That's the beauty of this, area of work. So that's why I have taken Kerala. And the outline of my lecture is I begin, want to get that proxy out of my way. So I present, some information on the educational attainment or gender parity in education as far as Kerala is concerned. Also work participation rates. Once that is out of my way, then I get into the political pipeline and then the party, political party gatekeeping and what they do and things of that sort. So that is broadly my scheme of presentation. And the data that I use is elections 2010, 15, and 20. 3 election data. And that's some of the things that I, points that I make will not be possible at one point of time data. So fortunately, we also have these 3 time points. And that's why I said it's a very, very rich data source. And so many other things can be done. I've made a small beginning. So let me see how Ms. Akhila reacts to what I have done. So that's one of the data sources that I use. I also use the extensive use of the websites of the political parties, because that is where you have details of who is which committee, who is a member, how many women, all that sort of a thing. And also Legislative Assembly has a database on members with their profiles and all that. But sorry to say that many of these data, so inconsistency in the sense, one, for example, 14th Legislative Assembly a very detailed profile of each member. Come to 15th, for at least 30% of the members, you don't have anything. Just the names are there and nothing. I don't know why they do this sort of a thing. Why can't they have some consistency in at least providing the information? Anyway, whatever it is, but I have used the data. Then, so discuss the pathways, and then I conclude by saying that what the political parties, they are the gatekeepers. So if women's representation is low, finally they are to be blamed. Now there, you really don't choose left, right, or center. It seems to be the same story. As far as women are concerned, there is perfect agreement among the parties. That is something which I didn't expect, at least in Kerala, but that is what. So if that is the situation in Kerala, then why talk of other states? We are often very critical of North Indian states, saying that this, that, and all. But anyway. Now, the first thing is, gender parity in education. Now, this is, of course, I have used the periodic labor force survey. Now you see they have no escape because, sustainable development goals, there is a monitoring system. So the government has to put out data very regularly. So, and then comparable definitions and things of that sort. So I have used that, the latest, that is 1819, that is available. And it is very striking. I think I don't have to explain the table. It is self-evident. You look at the numbers. Firstly, Kerala, 75.7 for male, 71.3 for female. That's at least secondary education. And the others are 10-15% below Kerala. That's one. Second, you look at the male-female difference. Kerala practically no difference, whereas the other states 10% point, 15, 20. That is the gender gap. So you know why I have taken Kerala. So education, this is the sort of a situation. I don't think I have to explain anything because the table is self-explanatory. What's happening?
2019.
It doesn't make any difference, even if you. Yeah. This is enrollment in tertiary education. This is also very important because you will see the importance of it as it come later to some other tables. Now look at that. There's something very interesting about Kerala. Women are far ahead of men as far as Kerala is concerned. Tamil Nadu, there seems to be, comparable. I don't know why, but and why this Kerala that's 32.9 and 44.7. The difference really looks very large. I don't have an explanation why it is. It looks so. Yeah, in fact, Himachal follows Kerala very closely, right, when it comes to education and some of the other sort of dimensions. Of course, you have this information for all the states, but then I have given this information only for select states. There is no point because nothing much is gained by showing you a huge table. So
Tamil Nadu is doing better than.
No, but there is a slight problem here. No, but this is.
Higher education government is plus beyond +2.
Yes, yes. No, that in any case, these numbers, now you see, we need to look at them carefully. Why is it? Firstly, of course, credibility, we cannot question very much because it's, periodic labor force survey, they're comparable sort of definitions. So they take care of that because otherwise international bodies keep on raising questions. So they're a bit careful about that. So I don't think there's much of a problem there. But then this interesting thing, why is it that Kerala, it is so low, whereas Tamil Nadu, many other things Tamil Nadu doesn't do very well, but this, they seem to be doing much better. Now, no, that's what I'm saying. No, women, in fact, we are close to Tamil Nadu. There is not much of a problem. So anyway, that is for any of you are interested, you can take up this issue and get into it. But for my purpose, you see, as far as education is concerned, we have no problem. Gender parity has been achieved. That is the point. Now, let us come to worker population ratios. Now, this, of course, I don't have to elaborate on this because we know that generally Indian worker population ratios are very low. And for a long time, Kerala, the rural worker population ratios were significantly lower than the all India average. And urban, we were more or less above the all India average. But rural, it was significantly lower. But then over the last few years, what has happened is, it has been going up. Nothing to compare to many other countries of the world, but all India level, you see, we have now the rural worker population ratios has crossed the all India average. Kerala has made, and urban, we are 6 percentage points higher. So worker population ratios are going up, both for female in both rural and urban. That is the point. And if you look at worker population ratio by education level, there is something very interesting about Kerala. Higher education. You see, the worker population ratios are very high in Kerala. So you get educated, then you have a chance of landing up a job. That is what it means. The higher level of education, better. Because that is what that 51.1 at the top really means. So now you see, we have an explanation why everybody wants to go for a postgraduate degree or even after that, because you stand a better chance of getting something. 1 in 2 stand a chance of getting a job. And in fact, the periodic labor force survey also has, classification. I have not shown it, how many regular and, all that sort of a thing. That's again, because the more educated, you have a better chance of getting these regular employment and things of that sort. But the most striking is that worker population ratios are going up. Second, higher educated, you have a better chance as far as Kerala is concerned. In fact, everywhere it's going up, but at the rate at which it's going up in Kerala, that's the most striking part of it. And then you also have, this is for the, ratio of female workers to male workers working in professional and technical workers. This is again from periodic labor force survey. Now you look at that first column. In fact, women are on par with men, but when it comes to managerial positions, that is ratio of female workers to total workers in managerial positions, of course, Kerala is better than all India at 21.7, but 21.7 doesn't look very high. But then, of course, many other states also, even Karnataka, it's only 26.2, and you don't. So Kerala is what? No, that means it's a ratio of female workers to male workers. That's for every 100 male workers in the professional and technical, you have one. It's basically teachers and the medical and a whole lot of those things. But that you observe every day. But then in terms of numbers, it's quite a striking sort of a thing. But there you see, look at the other sort of states. They are nowhere near there, except Himachal Pradesh. They they are only 70. But so that really means something. Then more importantly, the last 3 columns, that is percentage of workers working as managers, professionals and technicians and associate professions. As per National Classification of Occupations 2004, you will see that male, female, there is hardly any difference as far as Kerala is concerned. And everywhere else, there is the difference. For female, it is lower. So with this, the proxy business, what I required was education level and worker population ratios. Kerala, women, there is gender parity. And in fact, many respects, women are doing much better than men. So if these are the two factors which are leading to the sort of proxies, there's very little chance that we have that sort of a thing in Kerala. And this is also supported by, Devika has a paper where she quotes extensively from, many of the actors, that is panchayat presidents and all. And there's this panchayat president who's a Dalit, her own words, I have quoted it here. Don't try to control me because I am a SC woman. I said, was talking about the vice president of the panchayat. So that's her words. And then there is that sentence. I think you should take note of it. I said, please, giving a whip and all that sort of a thing, because this vice president is a party man, so he has control over the party. Then she says, please do that. But there is an MA degree that the university has conferred upon me. You can't remove that however you try. I think that's a very important statement. And then she goes on to say how her education level is valued by the party people and things of that sort. And another, again, from Devika's paper, is about a Muslim woman, Gram Panchayat president. What she said, these people think we do not know the rules. They are mistaken. We know the procedures much better than them. This man, an auditor in the panchayat, comes to her to teach her the rules and, sort of a control her working, sort of she says, this man, the auditor, was quite taken aback to see that I had kept the rules perfectly. That's the books and all that sort of a thing. He returned without a word. This is, now why have I quoted a Dalit president and a Muslim? Because traditionally, these were the, most, disadvantaged. The caste disadvantage and a whole lot of those things. If they could be so assertive, now it shows what that education and worker population work participation rates are really done to these women. So proxy obviously cannot work here. So proxy is out of the way. Now let us come to other things. Now let us come to the numbers. In my framework, once the proxy is out, then I have to focus on numbers, pathways, and the political cloud. Now you look at the numbers. Now these are fairly well known. I really don't have to, what's happening? Yeah. No, basically, this is not, it doesn't help because I think the color scheme. Anyway, basically look at the number of women. This is 2010 elected members. Jilla Panchayat, Block Panchayat, Municipality, Corporation, Gram Panchayat, and a whole lot of those things. Basically, you see, 21,607 is the total number of members. Out of them, 11,443 are women. This is 2010. 2015, again, 21,000 something. And you have 11,837 are women. So it's a very large number. No, you'll get it. You'll get it. It's not. 2020, you have, it's almost 12,000. Actually, it's steadily going up. In fact, you have that 55%. 2010, it was 52 point something. 2015, it was 53 point something. And 2020, it is 55%. Going up, but not really. Anyway, you'll have to have 50. There is simply no other go. But 55 really means in some of the general seats, women have been able to contest, but not very large, but it has gone up. More importantly, again, you will see about 12,000 women or 11 to 12,000 women enter the field, political sphere, every 5 years. And that's a very large number. Our assembly is only 140. Compared to that, you have a very, very large number, 100 times that, entering the local governments. And this number is especially large. The multiple is quite large when it comes to women, because there are only about 10 women in the assembly. So compared to that, 11,000 is a very large number. And you look at the party position. You see, for example, Gram Panchayat, you have about 7,000 odd out of the 16,000. You have close to 50% LDF, UDF is slightly lower. Then you have NDA and others. Now, the interesting thing is that NDA, you look at those three rural panchayats, NDA is making a steady sort of a gain, except for the district panchayat. You see, the Gram Panchayat 933 in 2015 becomes 1182 into 2020. Block Panchayat 21 becomes 37. And who is losing? It's largely the UDF. That is what you find. If you look at the urban, that is municipal councils and municipal corporations, you find that it's not, the pattern is slightly different, because if you look at the municipal councils, the LDF has lost slightly, and the UDF, of course, has lost more, and the NDA has gained, and the others have gained. Municipal corporations, of course, LDF is doing much better. UDF, the same story of losing, but not really very large numbers. And NDA making slow and steady improvement. That is the sort of a picture that you get. So the one message that comes out of here is that these coalitions, the two coalitions, they hold on to a few of these seats. The seats don't change very violently from one election to the other. Now that's a very important point. I'll come to that again. And so with that, now that's a numbers part. Numbers are very large. There's no disagreement on that. A large number of women come to the political sphere. Now let us come to the pathways. How do we understand the pathways? One way is, you see, if you have to gain experience, you have to be in the thing for a few terms at least. That means how many get re-elected. That's one indicator that could help you tell about the political pipeline, whether you are in the pipeline or this sort of a thing. Now, when we say re-elected, there are actually two dimensions to it. And the re-election is a product of two things. That is, one is political party retaining the seat. And then within the political party, because the members are nested in the political parties, then within the political party, the sitting members getting re-elected. So there are these two, and so re-election is a product of these two. Now, that's I'll give you one or two examples so that it's, imagine a situation where, political party retaining the seats is say 100%. And if the parties have given the tickets to all the sitting members, then the re-election of individuals is 100%. But if sitting members are not given tickets, but at least by a few political parties, then what happens is the first one still can be 100%, but the second, the individuals, it will be lower. I hope. So it's both are very, very important. That's how one needs to look at it. Now, so first, let us look at I think the battery is. I'll come to that. I'll come to that. You see, having said that, now when you have this 50% reservation and alternating seats, parties might have 100% retaining of seats. But you can never have individuals, getting re-elected. That percentage cannot be 100% because 50% are just out of the way. So 50% men will not be able to contest in their sort of a seats because those have become women's seats. Of course, they can contest in other seats, and if the party gives that ticket in the other, then I don't know why party would have any interest in giving them, because if they have not nurtured their wards, then there will be other claimants. So parties may not do that. But at least theoretically, you will have the situation of when you have reservation and alternating sort of a seats. The first one, parties can retain 100%, but still the individual level, you will not have that getting re-elected. That percentage will be much lower. And that is very, very interesting. There is also another very interesting dimension here. Now, in that sort of a situation, women actually have a better chance. Why am I saying this? Because when a general ward becomes a reserved ward in the next election, women can contest. Men cannot. Women in the same ward, they can contest election after election. Because in one, they may be contesting as women, it is reserved. In the next is a general, but it doesn't bother women. But when the general becomes a women's seat, men are barred. So women should actually have a better chance of getting re-elected. That's a theoretical position. Now, this is a very, very important point. So, given that you have 50% reservation, 50% quota, and an alternating sort of a system, a seat reserved for women in one, next it becoming general, that is actually disadvantageous for men. But women do have a great advantage. So theoretically, more women should be getting back. So re-election, the percentage should be higher for women and lower for men. Of course, assuming that political parties are fair to women. Let's make that assumption. Yes. Now you see, we already have a hint of this. You see, now we saw party coalitions, how many seats they hold. A very large number of seats. So there is not too much of that fluctuation. So obviously, the party retaining the seat, that percentage should be very high in many of these local governments. How does it look? Look at this. What I have done here is basically looked at the party positions in the district panchayat. That the first two columns are out of the 14 districts. Now you look at in 2010 to 15, what is the percentage of seats retained by political parties? You find that, 10 out of those 14 districts, over 60% of the seats have been retained by political parties. And in the next round, 15 to 20, that 10 has become 11. And not only that, at the top, that 81 and above, that is 5 districts. 80% of the seats have been retained by political parties. Very, very high percentage. This is the district panchayats. And then you have the municipal corporations, 6 of them in 10 to 15, you already have 5 because Kannur became a municipal corporation in between. So the next round you have 6. There again, of course, there it is slightly lower if you look at the corporations. But there again, what has happened is between these 2 time points, actually they have moved up. The retaining of the seats by the political parties, that has increased. You see, even the lowest in the municipal corporations case is there is none below 40. So 50, 60, 70% of the seats are being retained by political parties. It's a very, very high percentage. Okay, so with that, now let us come to how many individuals have got re-elected. Now, if you look at the municipal corporations, what you find is that 101 seats where sitting members have got re-elected. And a large majority of those who got re-elected from the same ward. Because the same ward, there is always an advantage. Because you are nurturing the ward, so you have a better chance. You change your ward or you change your seat, there's a chance is less. So out of those 101, a large majority have got re-elected from the same ward. Now, in Kozhikode Corporation, it is 63%. That is, out of those who got re-elected, 63% got re-elected from the same ward. In Kannur, it is slightly lower. I'll tell you why. Elsewhere, also it is around that 60, 70 sort of a thing. That is, if you are getting re-elected, there's a high chance that you get re-elected from the same ward. So over in the Kannur, it is low because Kannur, what happened is between 15 and 20. You see, 15, it was CPM ruled, but that's a very tight sort of a thing. They didn't have a large majority. 20, it went to the UDF. So there was, it's not the usual, the retaining the seats, there was a turnover sort of a thing. That's why that is lower. Because parties have not been able to retain. That's why the individual level, it is lower. So overall, contesting from the same ward where you are a sitting member, the chances of getting re-elected is higher because the voters know you, they trust you, and they also trust the party maybe. Okay. Now, as I said, women have a better chance. In fact, that is what the numbers really confirm. The data from the 6 corporations confirms this thing. In Kollam, out of the 9 who got re-elected from the same ward, 6 were women. Out of the 6 women, 3 had consecutive terms. This was the point I was making, because consecutive terms means they were contesting in the women's seat, next they were contesting in the general seat. That's how they could have the consecutive terms. Only 1 man had consecutive term, because that man, what happens is, we are a tall political leader, wherever you contest, you will win. And the parties also have an interest. They have a president sort of a nominee. Somehow you have to get, he has to get re-elected sort of a thing. So there are such people but they're very rare. That's what these numbers. In fact, my next slide also, in Kozhikode Corporation, out of the 19 who got re-elected, 12 had contested in the same ward, and 8 of them were women, and 4 had consecutive terms. So this is basically as expected. The situation in the district panchayat is no different. Out of the 44 members, that is 13% of the total elected members who got re-elected, 59% were from the same ward, the same constituency. Among them, it was 50% for women. For men it was 50% and 65.4% for women. That goes with what we, what is the theoretical sort of a possibility, because women stand a better chance because they have this great advantage. Okay. Now, the question then is, if women have this advantage, theoretical advantage, have they been able to get it? That is where the political parties come into the picture. Now, so that's why political party wise, how many got re-elected? That is what this table tells you. That is the, this is in the district panchayats. That is 331 seats in all. How many male, how many female, and then how many got re-elected? That is between, this is of 2020, 15 and 20, how many got re-elected? Now you just look at those percentages which are shown in the bracket. You see, overall, it's a very small percentage who got re-elected, only about 13%. And women, it is slightly higher, marginally, sort of 15.5 compared to 11 for men. And now you look at the parties, there is something very striking over there. Overall 13.3, but Congress 21.2 and Muslim League 19.4, significantly higher than the overall average. And you look at CPM, it's only 8.4. So they don't give a second term to their candidates. That is what it means. In fact, what the numbers you have for CPM are the lowest, rather the percentages. Though the numbers are large because they hold a large number of seats, but percentages wise, the re-elected is fairly low. Now this needs to be looked in the background of their retaining seats, the percentage is pretty high. So you field any candidate, you have a chance of winning, but then you don't give tickets to them. That is what this really means. And especially what we found earlier was that women have a great advantage. But the way, of course, you do see that Congress and IUML are slightly better because they seem to field more women. And that's why that percentage is actually almost double the overall average and more than double the CPM average. So that is what you find. This is the district panchayat. Then you have the
So if you can conclude first, then we can get some more time for discussion.
No,
Like
sure.
solid.
Okay. Oh, this is creating problems, you see. This is not moving properly. Yeah, this is for the municipal corporations. Actually, the percentages are slightly different, but the pattern is the same. CPM is the worst culprit. Other parties are doing better. That is what. Yeah. So I don't want to spend much time on this because basically what it means is that, yeah, the political pathways, re-election, you are just not giving the opportunity, especially for women. Now let us look at the, oh no, before that, I think I have to, yeah. Now let us see if political parties are not giving these tickets to women. Now, who are these parties? See, parties have committees. Now you look at the parties and their committees. They have district level committees and the district secretary that, and then the district committee actually means district secretary, not the committee as a whole. Then you have state secretariat, state committee, politburo, state central committee. That's a sort of a hierarchy you have. But you look at that column, women, hardly any. Of course, the State Control Commission, you have 20%. That's because there are only 5 and 1 woman, so it becomes 20%. But otherwise, State Committee, 97, you only have 13 women. And also, mind you, many of these state committee members will be chairman of corporation and a whole lot of those things. So fewer women means fewer such positions also. That's what, CPM. What is wrong? Secretaries, I'm talking, not the committee. I'm talking about secretaries. Committees, yes. Now, in fact, recent there is an amendment. So these are secretaries. That's what I clarified at the very beginning. So out of the 14 districts, you don't have a single secretary who is woman. Because secretaries runs very large. The committees are, anyway, I don't want to say more about it. You have seen all the theatrics in Trivandrum the last few months. What more do I have to say? Anyway, now this is CPI, slightly better. You have at least that second column is not empty, 0. Of course, when it comes to district council secretary and all, again, it's all very tightly controlled by men. This is all from their website. Just anytime you can go and have a look at this website. And now you come to Congress. The terminologies are different, but then, it doesn't make any difference. No, it's all zeros, you see. Yeah. Yeah. And the worst, of course, is, uh, yeah. Hmm. And this is what, yeah. Now, this is what the Thiruvananthapuram Jilla Panchayat President, Congress President, after just before the last election, what she said. Now, you see, we had a woman prime minister, woman president, woman this, that, but when it comes to local sort of things, you don't give us any. And she protested and walked out of the party. And you also have Nurbina Rashid Malappuram making a very similar sort of a statement. I don't want to. Now, so the point is very clear. Theoretically, women have a great advantage because that 50% reservation and alternating of seats. But whether they make it to the political pipeline crucially depends on political parties. Now, political parties of all hues seem to be controlled by men at all levels. So the theoretical advantage, in actuality, it doesn't remain an advantage at all. Because if it had remained an advantage, then the numbers would have been very different. But those who are getting re-elected is 10 to 15% overall, and it very often not very high for women. That is what it means. Now, of course, from 1919 onwards, Sen has been talking about how democracy is very important for development and a whole lot of those things. And you cannot think of democracy with the 50% women not being represented. Oh, I missed out something. This is really created. There is one slide I think I missed. That is I party. Then there is also, sorry, Akhila, I'll take 1 or 2 minutes. It says the Legislative Assembly, the 14th Legislative Assembly, you had 35 members out of the 140. You see, who are the people who normally enter the Legislative Assembly? They come from 3 or 4 channels. One is student union activity, second trade union activity, and then some maybe cooperatives and that sort of a thing. But large student union activity and trade union activity. But there is a certain percentage who also come through the local governments. In the 14th Assembly, we had 35 out of 140 who had come to the local government channel. But then we have to see how many women came through that channel. Firstly, you had only 8 women in the 14th Legislative Assembly. Out of that, there were 2 from CPI. Both of them came to the local government channel. But none of the other parties had anybody coming from the local government, through the local government channel. This is a very important point because if out of that 35, only 2 are women, that 33 men are found to be good to enter the Legislative Assembly coming through the local government channel. But you had an equally large number in that of women in that channel, but none of them are found suitable to enter the. You see, that is the important point. That's why I was wondering what happened to that slide. That slide is somewhere there, but this turned out to be a bit. Yeah. So the point is that, you see, Sen has been arguing about this. Now there is a general agreement that is that UN women and all, has been talking about that. But if you don't give representation to women, then what democracy are you talking about? And in fact, countries like India are paying a heavy price for that neglect, or rather that non-representation of women. What is that price? Now you see, every time when the UNDP brings out your Human Development Index or some other UN body or other international body brings out a report, India's rank somehow doesn't seem to go up, whichever it is. And then there is a big hue and cry saying that the methodology is this, data is this and that and all. But one thing that is missed out is, see, both Bangladesh and Bhutan and to some extent Nepal, they are doing much better than India. And my own argument would be, they are doing much better than India because they have a much higher representation of women in their parliaments. They have made a conscious effort to increase the representation of women in their parliaments. And in fact, the best, if you take I have given the Human Development Index numbers and all. I'm not getting into that. If you look at Bhutan, 1995, women's representation in parliament was 0. By 2015, it had become 16.7%. A huge jump. And Bangladesh, it is an increase from 10% to 20%, doubling over this period. And where does India remain? It was 7.2 in 1995. It is still only 13.4. An increase of only about 7 percentage points. Global average is 26. 26. In many countries, it's more than 50. And Americas, it's 30%. Europe, it's close to 30. Nordic, we often compare 43.9. And we oh, it's just 13.4. It is okay. So the price that we are paying is that you see both all our neighbors except Sri Lanka is a very funny case, but otherwise their women's representation in parliaments is going up. They're making, and then that gets reflected in some of these indicators. So then the Indian sort of a case, basically, as I said, I've taken Kerala. If Kerala it is so bad, then why talk of the other states? Because Kerala has this distinct advantage of gender parity in education and worker population ratio going up, and especially as you saw those numbers with education that's rising, and with all that advantage, if Kerala is not making it, then why talk about the other states? It's not going to be any different. Okay, so yeah, and the blame rests squarely on the political parties. Yeah, they are the gatekeepers. They are the ones who give tickets. And if they don't give tickets, even when there is a theoretical advantage, it doesn't turn into an actuality. And that's why these numbers are so low. And there is nothing much you can do about it. The blame has to be taken by them. And then we are paying a very heavy price. I'll just end by, because if I don't end by this, I'll be making an injustice to Kerala. So this is Engels making that point about 150 years ago. So I don't want to read it out. It is there. So it's for your consumption. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for an insightful presentation. I believe that this topic will create more discussion in the floor because I believe we Keralites are more aware of the political process that is happening in the local level. And I think I know what all process and what are the things about what are the strategies they can see when it comes to the local government elections. But before moving into the floor, I am very curious to know. So you have analyzed in your paper. You have analyzed, look into the both municipal corporation and district panchayat. What is your take? What if I know that re-election is an important component that determine the empowerment of the elected women representative. I believe it is true. But when it comes to the Grama Panchayat, I believe that it can give a completely different story. Or do you believe that it will be same as the district panchayat or the municipal corporation? What's your take on that? First thing is that. Second, I believe because during my fieldwork, during my MPhil thesis, what I found is that political parties are more conscious towards how this elected women representative function in their respective wards. So they take into consideration the political apprenticeship that these women gain through the governance. So how do you think that this data provide information about these political apprenticeship rather than just education and like employment? Rather than these two indicators, what are the other indicators that is more important that determine the entry of these elected women representatives in the local governance. That too more focused on the Grama Panchayat level. Thank you.
By the time you answer, they can think about the question.
Thank you, Akila. You caught me on the Gram Panchayat. I am actually, no. But let me tell you, because see, I have been looking at the data. Trivandrum, I have more or less completed. Now, parties retaining the seat, there is a lot of variation. Partly, now one has to look at, my idea is to look at least 3 districts. Trivandrum, one of the central Travancore districts, and maybe one. Okay.
I'll come in.
Yeah, I'll finish because you see, the reason why I chose Trivandrum is because the NDA is making a steady gain in many of the Gram Panchayats. And that's why I thought I'll look at Trivandrum. In central Travancore, you don't see that sort of a thing in some other districts. But Trivandrum, whatever I have looked at, I don't think my conclusions change. You are quite right. They look at, what the sitting member does and things of that sort. But it is not just the sitting member. Very often, sitting members' functioning also depends on how the party treats her. You see, the party members also have a role. And let me tell you, you see, I looked at the BJP strategy very carefully. Now, they seem to give more tickets to sitting, women members. And they seem to get re-elected. In fact, that's one beauty of this database, you see. You have the ward-wise information, you have the names also. So I looked at the names. What the BJP has been doing is, they are focusing, they don't want to lose any of the seats which they have gained. Once they gain it, they don't mind even giving ticket to the same woman in a general sort of a seat. But many of the other parties don't do it. Despite, so that way I will have to contest your point. It's not for example, take CPM. Some of the panchayats, municipalities, they have, they retain 80% of the seats. But despite that, you look at how many women have they given tickets for contesting? No.
So that may be because of the policy they follow.
No. What I'm saying is,
So as far as CPM is concerned, for them, they have to maintain the woman representation. And for them, they have to maintain the seats. For them, the individuals do not matter as far as some of these left parties are concerned. So if as long as they are winning the seats and they are maintaining the woman representation, it is when, and they rotate not only women, even men are rotated because there are many people who are more or less equally eligible for the position. So they need to be rotated, and at the local level, I'm talking about the panchayat, the dynamics is quite different.
You can say anything you like, but if they have to do this rotation equally competent and all that, then why is it that they don't get into the party committees? Because that argument should be not just for this, it should apply to everything. And there are women who do extremely well, but they are not given I don't have to elaborate that. You can justify your argument, but
and one more thing, sir, I also believe that that re-election is not that re-electing in the same ward, same sitting ward as you argue is right. But what I think is that for women to come, if a woman want to retain in the political field, I think she has to come into the higher levels, like to the district level, to the block level, and more to the legislative level. So how can this data?
No, that I have already answered. Legislative Assembly, if 35 have come through the, and only 2 women, do I have to say anything more? They have to come through the LG. You are right. It is not, I have looked at the profile of these 35. Some start as members of Gram Panchayat, then become presidents, then graduate to the district Panchayat level, then look at the lone candidate in the 15th assembly, Pratibha. She actually comes through the local government channel.
Can we have a more ordered discussion?
No, but-
Because now let's do one thing. Chair, you have to solicit, you have done your
Yeah.
discussion. So now you get questions and collect questions, then we'll answer. Yeah, you go.
So now the floor is open for the discussion. Scholars can and other faculty members can raise their questions.
Is there a best question prize for
No,
today? No.
That is already taken care of yesterday. So now we have moved one step. In Akhila's words, we have moved from the GP to the district panchayat level. So
No questions? I thought there are- Yeah.
yes, Ranjit.
Sir, I have,
Huh.
whatever you said is to some extent I'm agreeing. But sir, I have few observations. I mean,
Sure.
I'm from a panchayat where always women dominates. Okay, the number of seats even now also, the president is also a woman and the members, the majority is also woman. So I don't know about the block or but my panchayat, my nearby 4 panchayats, the situation is almost same. The re-election is happening to some extent, but they are contesting in different wards, not the same ward. The person who contested in one ward, next time they are moving to the nearest ward and contesting, and some are winning, some are losing. So that representation is there. They are re-electing. So if you generalize, I mean, because in my panchayat and near panchayat and all, but BJP or this thing is not there, only Congress and left. So what I observe is they are maintaining that thing, but now after 2-3 terms, left is not giving tickets to the same women candidate. That is mainly because of their party position that more than 2 consecutive years they don't want to this one. But that is something different than your observation on block and districts. So I think if you extend the study to the local, panchayat level, you may observe a lot of interesting things, some differences in at least some areas, some
I answered that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I've done
So
that.
then one more thing is like, so you talked about, the party representations, the party positions by the women this part. But sir, you have mentioned about the district secretaries and all. But so there's a district secretariat who take the decision. But in Kerala, if you take district secretariat members, in all the districts except 3 or 4 districts, all secretariat committees, women representation is there. Then we'll take the case of Arya Rajendran. So if you take the leaders of mayors or district panchayat, this thing, there also to some extent the representation is there. So in that way, can we generalize that all parties are basically completely ignoring the putting a position of accepting the women representation?
I didn't say completely ignoring. The numbers speak a truth. You see what the numbers say. You see, we are talking about 30% representation in parliaments and all that. Where are we even in the local? Of course, there is the gender quota, 50% you have to find a woman. So you give tickets to women. But then, you see, if you go by the experience the world over, they have to be in the field for a few terms to really gain experience and move on to graduate onto something else. But then you are just not giving that opportunity to them. And then this argument that there are too many competent and so you have to give. But then how is it some of them at the district level secretaries continue for, the number of years they continue? They have, how does one justify that? In fact, the party is afraid to change some of them, the men. So that's something which I just don't understand. And you go up, you look at, all those numbers of the party committees and all. It's all from their website. So just you put that number and that speaks, that tells you a story. And that is a story that I've been telling. And then Gram Panchayat, you see, I've been looking at that very carefully. And that, of course, time consuming. And I also do this, that's why I looked at the same ward, other ward. It's all there. You see, it's a very rich data source. So many things can be done. So one is doing that. But that's why I can confidently say, since I completed the Thiruvananthapuram district Gram Panchayat more or less, my conclusions are not going to change very much. Even if I will add one more table with some qualifications, but the conclusions will more or less remain the same. That's my answer to that.
I thought it's a very interesting and timely analysis. But as a research paper, the analytical framework that you draw is essentially, you quote one author. You have not developed that beyond. And your valid hypothesis, it is re-election. It is re-election, and she was trying to contest that. And that has actually, I thought it didn't come from the framework, it came from the empirics. And the basic propositions of the study are not necessarily, because you talk about the pathways of parties, that is very important. That has been dealt with, but perhaps not up to the satisfaction of someone like Atul Kohli or someone like that. I don't know whether they will support. I mean, unfortunately, the crowd here is not, crowd will be carried away by the numbers, but the story that each number tells you, you need a much more of a political framework. I think that's what I was thinking, that framework could have been articulated rather than just quoting this one author, which you're talking about, Jalal Sridhar. Right? That's fine, but that doesn't satisfy the prerequisite of an analytical paper. That's what I'm saying. Someone like Atul Kohli would have really, how would have responded to this? So I would appreciate many of your conjectures are now it's remain as they're valid. I'm sure it must be valid, but empirically valid. But that has to be theoretically supported in the first part, which is not really coming through. That's one thing. And a priori, and if you look at from a superficial manner, if you look at Panchayat, out of 20,000, you have actually the probability of women, since you rightly argued, women should have in fact more than 50%. That is in fact there. It is there. But the underlying dynamic that conceals actually what is more than what is revealed. Because as far as political parties concerned, you look at in Kerala, you are up to 51%, it is actually increasing. So that is one thing. And digging deep, that dynamics, these two has to be analytically postulated. That is not really coming in the paper. That's what I thought. If one can little bit empirical analysis, if that could be backed with adequate theory, that would have a little bit more. Otherwise, I mean, of course, I'm sure it might be a good take for the newspapers. Look, Marxist Party is the worst. CPM or Muslim League is really bad. All those things are fine. But that will be, that's what I was a bit thinking about. I mean, maybe that when you rewrite, we can consider this because some of them are really empirical evidence, not backed by theory, perhaps. That will also perhaps answer her question also, in fact. That's what I thought.
I think some question is there in the chat.
No, I have.
Okay.
So, sir have taken the level of education and employment as the criteria that can be used to avoid this proxy things in the sense. But in fact, when it was in the 2020 local body election, what happened in the northern Kerala states, what happened, because why I am trying to say is that those political parties in which you have shown in the table, where those particular political parties, which are actually you have shown by the numbers, like higher retaining, higher elections and all those things, like in the terms of women representation, those particular political parties having the numbers well above 20%. In that, for that particular parties, there when there was election in the certain districts, what actually happened is that when we are putting the posters to show that, okay, this is the candidate you are having, in many districts for that particular political parties, what happened is that it was not the name of that particular women candidate is shown. Rather, it was shown that he's the wife of that particular person. And most of for those candidates, it was the photo of the husband that was actually put on the posters rather than this actual female members. So how can we say that just because the education level is high, just because they have employment in the prior experience, which can be taken as the substantial factors to say that there is no proxies in the Kerala, is the first question. Then the second question is that I think the paper has given much emphasis for the re-election percentage. But again, that is not leading to the fact of inclusive development, because repeating the seats for the single person is not actually resulting in the process of decentralization. That is, more people are not getting the chance to get participated, because for making the democracy be sustainable and inclusive, it should be more participative. Just by focusing on the process or the number of re-election, that is not going to what we can say the spread and the strengthening of democracy. So that should not be the case of like while we are taking into the situation of women participation, because just by looking into the number of or the percentage of women candidates or who are elected out of the total representative, that itself can be taken as a good number, because like increasing the percentage from 50 to 55% itself can be taken as a good number. But again, if the percentage of candidates repeated, it's actually showing that the democracy is not spreading, like the participation is not spreading.
I think it's a very,
No, but then the counter argument. Had 2 or 3 terms. One starting as a GP member, then becoming vice president or something in the next term, then becoming either district panchayat member or vice president or that sort of a thing. Many of the men had those 3 terms. Then the democracy is not affected. Then they come to the legislative assembly. But you have more number of women, but you are not giving them opportunities. They are not entering the legislative assembly. So what I am arguing is not this general thing about more participative. I have no dispute with all that. But then why this distinction between men and women? If out of 35, 33 men come through that route, but only 2 women, whereas in the field you have equal number of women. That is the argument. So it is not, all those things, one can turn it whichever way you want. But the basic question is, how is it that it doesn't apply to men? When it comes to women, yes, oh, it's a democracy, it's participation. Yes, but then how is it that the men make it? That
I just want you to kind of take a related literature on women entrepreneurship. Studies shows that those enterprises which are in the name of women are actually not really women. They're actually, now, is it really of the type that really happens here? Point
no,
number
no,
one.
yeah.
Second point is, we may also like to check, instead of people who got elected, the candidates who contested in providing seats. If this same thing holds good, you stand more, your arguments stand more strengthened.
Yeah, that's the second thing is easy to answer. The first, you see, there is a related thing which I didn't mention at all. That is,
If that is the case.
Yeah.
Then we have, that is where your analytical framework could be, this argument also comes because we are talking about a particular institutional or socio-economic and institutional context. And when we're talking about Scandinavian countries, the Nordic countries have got a much higher, matured institutional architecture. And in as far as we are concerned, we are just evolving and you are trying to compare. And in that context, what is the pace that you expect? Is it anything happening? I mean, because this may you can perhaps, give a caveat or something like that. That framework
yeah.
should take care.
I'll come to that. In fact, I mentioned somewhere starting saying that, in the 60s, there were only 3 women leaders. Who were they? You see, there are 2 other dimensions which come into this picture when we talk about the re-election or the political pipeline. That is, one is kinship. Other is some women, they may contest once. Then they say, oh, this is all very dirty. I don't want to be. So there are these individual decisions. So individual and kinship versus institutional. I was largely focusing on the institutional dimension. Yes, you will see there are, for example, even in CPM, some of these candidates who got re-elected, exactly like what you said, whose wife, that kinship does play a part, but that's only a small part of it. But I am bothered more about, you see, if I'm going to write a paper on kinship, then that would take over. But that's a minor part of this whole schema. That is and in fact, there was this, who made this point, CPM, the district committee, you have a large number of women now taking decisions and all that. Now, this is a discussion that is going on in the CPM from 1995 onwards. And now they are trying to address at least some of this by filling those lower level sort of things by a large number of women. But then, of course, there is a very important question. That's again, I don't think I can answer it here. That requires somewhat detailed analysis. But who are actually making the decisions? Now, that's where all those tables about those, secretariat and all that, where are the women? Even women who have excelled, they are simply not there. So I think one needs to, of course, definitely it needs more work. But you see, the data is there. And, the point that Akila, you made, GP, then other block panchayat, one can easily, I looked at some of those. In fact, you don't see them there. Men, you do see. You do see them getting in at the municipal corporation level, then graduating into something else. And in fact, a very interesting part, it cannot be part of this paper. You see, even when a man is a member of the GP, next round he doesn't contest. He is accommodated in some other sort of a thing, in a cooperative or in fact, at a higher level in a corporation. After 5 years, next election, he contests on the same ward. But we don't see that happening with women. I mentioned that in the paper, that it's a moving between party and some of the other organizations. That happens with men. But when it comes to women, you don't see that at all. But this, see what, you can test all these things because the database allows you to do that. That is the richness of the data, which has not been exploited. So as I said, this is a very small way I'm getting into that. So a lot of questions will still remain. And I'm happy that, you are asking all those questions.
2 more questions from the chat.
What is it?
I will read out.
Uh.
It's from Gareth Wall. His thanks Professor DN sir for an insightful presentation and to gift for organizing the session. Whilst I tend to agree that a large part of the blame for low EWR rate sits with party leaders or secretaries and members, However, since parties are interested in winning elections, some blame must also sit with the electorate. What is the success rate at the ballot box of women candidates compared to male candidates? And Shiny, another question is for Shiny, it's a comment. Sir, it's not easy to come up to be political by women in Kerala unless we change our ways, my experience.
Hi, I just want to say hello to Gareth. Gareth, thank you for joining. Good to hear from you after a long time.
Yeah, Gareth, what was his, his question? I missed that out last.
Since parties are interested
Ah,
in
yeah,
winning elections, some blame must also sit with the electorate.
Okay.
So what is the success rate at the ballot box?
Okay. Now, Gareth, it's but if you look at the re-election, one of my slides, I do list that out, that women have a higher chance of getting re-elected, not men. So women do well. In fact, many of the wards, if they are sitting members, they do much better than men. But despite that, they are not given tickets. That is the story. Thanks for joining.
Madam Shiny, are you online? Would like to hear from you. Thank you for, hello. I think you would have left, I suppose. Are you? Aalundo സ്ഥലത്തില്ല. She's not online. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you anyway,
But,
Joe, for joining.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor?
I think that most of it should be for the Chaya
Chaya.
chat.
Shayad, okay, we can continue the discussions
Chat.
during the lunch or evening snacks or something. Okay, then we are closing the discussion. First, before that, we'll go to the vote of thanks.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Another interesting discussion is coming to an end. And now it's the time to formally thank everyone. So first of all, I'd like to thank Professor Joseph, our director, who is instrumental in carrying out this series of webinars. Thank you, sir. Then obviously to Chair Akhila, who agreed to chair this session and provided various insightful comments. Then to our speaker, Professor Narayana, who picked up an interesting topic, like he does always. And it is an interesting area, something that we explored much. Mostly from a multidisciplinary angle. Thank you, sir, for presenting or discussing this topic. Then thanks are due to my fellow coordinator, my colleagues, our students, and our IT team. Vrinda, who prepares the flyer and who distributes, and the participants who are there online for their participation, of course. And once again, thank you all for being here. We will be back with another interesting seminar. Yeah, next time onwards, we'll announce the forthcoming seminar schedule so that, yeah, you have been warned in advance. Yeah. So thank you all. We'll come back. We'll meet again with some interesting discussions.
Thank you, coordinators. Thank you very much. I think, yeah.
But is there scope for re-election?
Yeah.